Randy, we've got a problem. What?
They go.
Reality's here. He's trying to crash the party. Reality? Who let him in?
You're sad that people are mean? Well, I'm sorry. The world isn't one big liberal arts college campus.
I don't have an agenda. Like, I want people to do something. I need them to do something. I want them to avoid irrationality.
I guess what interests me is just like what interests everybody else. It's just sort of what feels real.
That was totally wicked!
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another edition of Real News on this Wednesday morning. Yes, it is Wednesday. I just checked that Wednesday morning, May 27th. My name is Mr. Henry. David Sean Thompson over there beside me. It's Real News we're doing in the morning. Day just chock-filled with headlines. I'm going to immediately jump into this Greatest Audience in the Nation Appreciation segment. If you're brand new to the show, this is what we do to start this program here. We do this thing called Greatest Audience in the Nation Appreciation segment. It's because what we're trying to do here is build a community. Right? We're trying to build something where we can grow together, we can progress together, we can, feel with each other, we can help each other, we can cry with each other, we can do all these things that communities are meant to do with each other. That's why we like to try and ping off the Facebook comments so much. That's why we try and stay involved with stuff, what's going on with YouTube. By the way, realnewsradio.live, realnewsradio.live. And I'm going to start it. That's where you find it, the landing page for Facebook, YouTube, all the stuff we're doing. I'm going to start a little bit sappy this morning, Shine. Your mother, Shine's mother, posted something last night, dude, with an interview with you from, 2003, right? And it was the interview Shine did with the Dave Clary, a guy back in the day that would cover Oak Ridge football stuff. And I don't know, man, I'm going to be real sappy here, but it just brought me back to like, man, Shine and I have been boys for 17 years, dude. 17 freaking years, man. Talking about top days back in the day, the band we had together, dude. Talking about, playing football with each other. I don't know, man. Just hit me all of a sudden last night. I was like, it's freaking 17 years, man. I've been doing this. Look at the... Yes, that's right. You did. Yeah, and it was in that order, too, which I'm sure your mom loved. Yeah, it's good stuff. Weren't we all, bro? Right? Oh, man. I actually was messing with my wife the other day, which I'm pretty sure I was looking in the mirror. I was like, my teeth are shifting again? It's like, come on, man. How does that have something like that happen? Right? Anyways, dude, moving on to the program here. Let me start this by the very beginning, at the very beginning here. If you have anything that you want to shout out, some pray to, some encouragement, you need some prayer concerns or something, you need help with something, you have any businesses that are trying to innovate, any stuff like this, bring it to our attention. We'll bring it to the community's attention. We're really just trying to help people during this shutdown period. Two quick stories, by the way, that are not mentioned in the title of this program, but are in the show notes. Frankly speaking, y'all, I was just telling Sean off air, there's some days where you get to things where you're running on fumes because there's just not that much going on, right? You're trying to figure out what stories you're pulling from evergreen stories. But there's other days like today where there are so many stories, we need 4 or 5 hours to do any justice to any of them. I mention that now because there's two stories that are linked in the show notes that arguably took up much of the headlines from yesterday that I'm just, for one reason or another, I'll explain very quickly, I may not even get to today. Unless the Real News audience wants to jump on them, let me know. Two of those stories being, obviously, what you're going to see in the show notes there. Again, click the Evernote link. That's the best way to find the daily show notes. It's a little bit of a mixture between the red letters you're going to see there is my actual thoughts on some things. And then I basically take articles and I cut out all the nonsense. I cut out all the opinion. I cut out all the fluff, get rid of the ads and everything, just put it in one, easily digestible format for you. Here's the two stories, though, okay? Yesterday, we had an interaction in Central Park with a white woman and a black man. Go check out the video. I'm sure you've all seen this already. The white woman is walking her dog through the ramble. The black man is trying to watch birds. White woman gets upset, or the black man gets upset because the dog is not on a leash. Stuff ensues. White woman calls the police on the black man. Stuff blows up. It is what it is, okay? We may get to that. I'm not sure, man. It's because I have very strong feelings about what that situation was. And I'm not sure if I should express those feelings right now because that story came right before the Minneapolis officer story, which I'm sure you all also heard about yesterday. The officers, 4 Minneapolis police officers, you'll see that link to the show notes as well, were fired for the fatal arrest of George Floyd. You'll see I've linked 2 videos here. One is the MSNBC coverage, so it's edited properly. It's for those that just want to digest what the story is. There's also a link to a Twitter video with a very clear graphic warning content right there, graphic content warning right there. It's the unedited version, which I would suggest people watch that if you can stomach it. I think it's proper to have a full understanding of how these actions unfolded. And again, I hesitate to give my opinion on either one of these stories because they kind of implicate the other as far as like the stories that what's going on right now. So whatever. Anyway, I just wanted to let you all know that if you want to follow up on that, those are there. If you want to know my opinion, hey man, let me know your opinion in the Real News audience right now in the show in the comment section. And I'll tell you, at the end of the show, I'll let you know my opinion on this stuff. There's just other stuff I want to get to right now that we have to. Let me start real quick with a little bit of local stories. Just some good stuff, man. A little bit of stuff to bring your spirits up here. Opryland, Nashville. We're opening that back up June 25th. You like how I said we're, like I had something to do with that? Yes, I'm a big part of that. We are opening that back up on June 25th. Opryland is opening back up here. SoundWaves and indoor-outdoor water park, that's going to be reopening as well. The Ryman Hospitality Properties announced the hotel's closure on March 25th. The official reopen date will be June 25th. Here's the quote from Mr. Adams himself, the guy that's in charge of this. The summer leisure travel season is quickly approaching to Gaylord Opryland Resort, along with our 4-acre upscale, 4 acres, goodness gracious, 4-acre upscale indoor-outdoor water attraction, SoundWaves, will reopen to visitors who are anxious to get out and celebrate summer. Guests will be able to enjoy amenities of the resort as well as the thrill of riding the waves and relaxing while floating along the lazy river at SoundWaves, an experience that is exclusive to Nashville and is fun for the entire family. It sounded like I was doing an on-air read ad. I promise I wasn't.
Yeah, SoundWaves, come on down.
That's right. Get your tickets now on sale at Ticketmaster. No, I don't know, man. It's just a story about the state of returning to a bit of normalcy, things getting back to normal. And I preface that because of the Patrick Dalton story that I'm about to get into right now. Yeah, Patrick Dalton story, as we've been talking about, what we've all been dealing with, right? Of the shutdown that's been going on. I don't know if there's much ways for a lot of us to personalize some of these stories. Now, you see the numbers. We actually used to have a scroll going across the bottom of the screen. Yeah, everybody's seen the numbers. We're all updated on the numbers every single day. But I didn't know anybody personally, outside of our buddy Nathan, man. I didn't know anybody personally that had struggled with this, and it was hard for me to directly empathize, right? And I ran across the story Patrick Dalton yesterday. He's a Knoxville native. He plays a collegiate football player. I actually found this story on Gina Oster, however you pronounce her last name, the lady that's running for Martin Daniels' recently vacated seat. I was trying to do some research on the candidates that are running for them stuff. It's part of the job that I like to do, just know the potential candidates, yada, yada. She's the lady that's also running in that primary with Eddie Manis. And she's the one that posted this story that drew my attention to it. Patrick Dalton, I would urge the Real News audience, if you can handle it again, go click on this story. Go see what this guy's story is. It's basically an account, and I've linked the Facebook note there too. I'll say this right now. If you're the part of the Real News family, go over there and just extend your support. Let a Knoxville native, a Knoxvillian know we're here for you. We're praying for you. We got you. We got your back if you need help with anything. This guy, Patrick Dalton, this kid, Patrick Dalton, these posts are just an account of what his family had to go through, of what it's like to be in a hospital by yourself, to be in a hospital bed, of the father's perspective of what it's like to not know if your child is going to wake up the next morning, if you're going to wake up without a son the next morning, of what this massive human being, I'm talking, he's a lineman, this huge human being had to go through. A guy, that never really struggled with much in his life. He could take down a tree if he wanted to. That type of dude. It's a large stature, that this virus, took him down for a while. What it's like to struggle with that in the hospital. What's it like to try and breathe. What it's like to put a tube down someone's neck, tracheotomy or whatever. The story, I'm not trying to be too grotesque here, I promise you, but the stories of them, of an answer to prayer. This kind of encompasses all of what I'm talking about. Of it being an answer to prayer for this family, that the poor kid didn't have to cover a hole in his throat to be able to talk. I don't think about that side of the severity of the story, man. I didn't know about some of that stuff, about the months of recuperation that's going to take this guy. And I'm not trying to be too much of a downer. I promise you, I'm not. I'm just trying to lend some perspective to those that are struggling with this, to those that see the other side of this. And then Shine, in Real News audience, I caught myself in the middle of some of this, coming across another story by Dr. Terry. He's a House of Representatives. He's a member of the House of Representatives here in Tennessee. And he linked to a story from The Hill entitled the shutdown. I'm trying to watch my words here. The shutdown will cost Americans millions of years of life. Now, what does that mean? I'll explain it here in just a second. But I'm struggling to figure out where I stand between the previous story and this following story we're about to bring up. That this virus takes a terrible toll on the health of our communities. And frankly speaking, this is a narrative we don't exactly appreciate from the left, but it is one that's true. It's misplaced right now, I think, but it takes a terrible toll on the least of these, on the marginalized minorities, on those of the lower socioeconomic status. For a myriad of reasons, the run up to, just trust me, take my word for it, the stats are there to show out that it's hitting hardest those that are least able to cope with it. And this story about Patrick Dalton puts a face to the struggle that forces me to realize that this virus, man, it's here. And it's not going away anytime soon. And it makes that Patrick Dalton story makes me want to protect my loved ones even more and take as many precautions as possible. And I'm starting to be able to genuinely empathize with those that want everything to remain closed for as long as it takes. But now I'm starting to wonder, man, like I didn't stop to consider the cost that wasn't being reported on. I never thought about the potentially devastating consequences of everyone focusing exclusively on this virus. Meaning, beyond the obvious economic implications, what might happen when the entire country buys into a false dichotomy of either shutting everything down entirely or opening up everything entirely? Consider this following Hill, the Hill reporting. Consider the following here about some of the unforeseen consequences of shutting everything down. This story starts by saying our governmental approach to mitigation policy of broad societal lockdown focuses on containing the spread of this virus at all costs instead of flattening the curve and preventing hospital overcrowding. Although well-intentioned, the lockdown was imposed without consideration of the consequences beyond those directly impacted by this pandemic. The policies have created the greatest global economic disruption in history, with trillions of dollars of lost economic output. Okay, pause. From the very beginning, we're already on the same page. I get it. Yeah, we get it, Mr. Henry. That's not news. The economic, yeah, of course, if it's devastating. You shut down the economy for 3 months, man. What do you expect to happen? This Hill reporting goes on to say that the financial losses have been falsely portrayed as being purely economic. To the contrary, using numerous National Institutes of Health public access publications, Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and Bureau of Labor Statistics data, and various actuarial tables, the Hill is able to calculate that these policies will cause devastating non-economic consequences that will total millions of accumulated years of life in the United States, far beyond what the virus itself has caused. Now, again, keep in mind, real quick here, I'm gonna give me about 5 more minutes. I'm gonna play this whole thing out. Then we're gonna hit some comments from the show notes. I'm gonna get some response from Shine. Comments from the show notes. Comments from Facebook. Because my whole purpose of this, my whole pitch here, is to say, again, I'm a bit conflicted with where I should lie here. And this isn't me being marginal milquetoast Mr. Henry. This is me honestly wondering, man, goodness gracious, these personal stories hit very close to home. And golly, man, no one should ever have to suffer in the way that I was even just reading words on the screen and the way this Patrick Dalton guy suffered. Conversely, if it is true, in a slightly utilitarian sense, that we're comparing, years of lives lost from the virus and those that are suffering in unreported ways. And I'm not, without bearing the ball here, here's the comparative numbers from what the Hill says. 700,000 years of lives lost from the virus compared to 1.5 million years of lives lost to those things that are being unreported. Economic, I'll get into what those are. I didn't want to bury that ball. And I'm saying I'm not trying to prove a point one way or the other. I'm trying to put that information out there for the Real News audience to consider. So here's what we have. The loss of economic output in the U.S. alone is estimated to be 5% of GDP. or 1.1 trillion for every month of the economic shutdown. The lost income results in lost lives as the stresses of unemployment and providing basic needs increases the incidence of suicide, alcohol and drug abuse, and stress-induced illnesses. These efforts are particularly severe in lower income populace, like I said before, as they're obviously more likely to lose their jobs, and mortality rates are much higher for lower income individuals. Now, statistically, every $10 million to $24 million lost in U.S. incomes results in one additional death. One more time. Every $10 million to $24 million lost in U.S. income results in one additional death. One portion of this effect is through unemployment, which leads to an average increase of mortality of at least 60%. This translates to 7,200 lives lost per month among the 36 million new unemployed Americans, over 40% of whom are not expected to regain their jobs. In addition, many small business owners are near financial collapse, creating lost wealth that results in mortality increases of 50%. Yo, I'm not lying. I had no clue. And I know it's going to sound a little bit ignorant, and I will fully own that. I have no problem owning my ignorance in this right now. I didn't think about economic implications, okay? I transferred that obviously into greater suicidality, coupling that with lower income. I did that before we started this story. I got that analysis. But some of these direct statistics, dude, how would you know? With an average estimate of one additional life loss per $17 million in income loss, that would translate to 65,000 lives lost in the U.S. for each month. 65,000 lives lost in the United States for each month because of the economic shutdown. I'm telling you, dude, did y'all know this? And yes, some of this is based upon hypothetical data. That's clear. That's a little bit of a false comparison. I get that, a false equivalency. I understand. It's a little bit of a false comparison to say the hypothetical life loss of an economic shutdown compared with the actual lives loss. That's adding to the weightedness of why I'm trying to consider this. You following? In addition to live loss, though, because of income, think about this, all right? So we got the economic angle. That's fine. Now let's hit a little bit more to the point at hand of why I just brought up that false comparison. Let's compare health to health. In addition to lives lost because of lost income, lives are also lost due to delayed and foregone health care imposed by the shutdown. And obviously the fear that it creates around these patients. Here are just a few examples of the missed health care on which we based our calculations. By R, I'm reading directly from the Hill. They go on to say, emergency stroke evaluations are down 40%. Pause real quick. So one of two things is happening here. Either people are not showing up and are still having strokes, or we're having 40% less strokes than we had just overnight. Now, you tell me, how would logic lead you to think what the proper answer would be there? I seriously doubt that we're having 40% less strokes overnight than we had previously. If these people aren't showing up at the hospital, and probably for good reason. They're afraid. They're afraid they're going to catch something while they're there. They're afraid that they might be put on a lower priority list. I don't know, man. I don't know what it is. I just know that the stats are saying that stroke evaluations are down 40%. Of the 650,000 cancer patients receiving chemotherapy in the United States, an estimated half are missing their treatments. Half of the 650,000 cancer patients are missing their treatments. Of the 150,000 new cancer cases typically discovered each month. That stat alone is terrible, man. Goodness gracious. That stat right there just hit me. 150,000 new cancer cases typically discovered each month. Golly, man. What a terrible thing cancer is. Goodness gracious. Anyways, 150,000 new cancer cases discovered each month, as elsewhere in the world, are not being diagnosed in 2/3 of the 3/4 in 2/3 to 3/4 of routine cancer screenings are not happening because shutdown policies and fear among the population. Nearly 85% fewer living donor transplants are occurring now compared to the same period last year. In addition, more than half of childhood vaccinations are not being performed. The implications of treatment delays for situations other than this virus result in 8,000 U.S. deaths per month during the shutdown, or about 120,000 years of remaining life. Now, give me a second just to finish up a few of these notes, and I'll get some comments from Facebook here. This basically goes on to say that in comparison, the virus fatalities have fallen disproportionately on the elderly, particularly in nursing homes and those with morbidities. Goodness gracious, man, it's one of those talking mornings. Based on the expected remaining lifetimes of these COVID-19 patients, and given that 40% of deaths are in nursing homes, the disease has been responsible for 800,000 lost years of life so far. virus that we're currently dealing with, pandemic, has been responsible for 800,000 years of life lost so far. Considering only the losses of life from missed health care and unemployment due solely to the lockdown policy, the Hill is conservatively estimating that the national lockdown is responsible for at least 1.5 million lost years in life every single month. That's where I'm at right now, okay? And Sean, I've been rambling on for 20 solid minutes here, man. So let's see if we want to hit some stuff from Facebook, or let's see if we want to, get some response from you. But I don't know, man. Help me out here, okay? You get what I'm saying, right, buddy? One more time to recap. We start with this Patrick Dalton story. Terrible stuff to hear, all right? This guy who was a little collegiate football player, man, a guy that would truck any one of us in this room, was taken down by this virus, right? He's going to have months worth of recuperation period. I mean, literally, the terrible, harrowing stories, man, of just not knowing if they're going to wake up without a son, and in the tracheotomies and just like thing after thing. It's just like, dude, it's just no one should have to suffer that way. And then I think about the story from the Hill. Dr. Terry posted this, member of the House of Representatives here in Tennessee, saying like, well, comparative numbers here of potential years of lost human lives. We're talking 800,000 because of the virus and 1.5 million because of the shutdown. It's like, it's the first time I've had any way to sort of quantify. Right? It's the first time I've had any way to quantify the comparison between what's happening. And I just don't know. I don't know where I should be conflicted, how much I should be conflicted. I don't know how much cognitive dissonance I should carry around with me every day. And frankly speaking, Sean, I don't know if those two things should necessarily be mutually exclusive. I don't know if we have to buy into this false dichotomy of either or. And I think it is that false dichotomy that has led us to where we are now. I truly do believe there's a safe way to reopen and possibly get best sides of both of these things. I don't know, Sean. Let me kick it to you for a minute. Am I wrong? Are you seeing some of this too?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think it was really nice for you to put some numbers and some human faces on some things that we have. I mean, I'll even say on this show we've been a little cavalier about, because it's one thing to talk about those numbers of the people who didn't go into the hospital as a means and that have subsequently died as a means to make an argument about why we should open up. That's one thing. It's a total another thing to just talk about it and say, think about all those people that could have gotten a few years of their life extended or whatever, and they're not able to do that. And just thinking about that by itself in a vacuum instead of a means to make an argument. You get what I mean? I think you really humanized, to me at least, some of the stuff going on in hospitals, even though you didn't use a human name like you did when you were talking about the virus. I think generally that was a nice way to lay out the real situation, the reality of what we're in, not the feeling or the fight or the argument we're in. You get what I'm saying? The opposing narratives we're in, the reality we're in. And I agree with you that it's not mutually exclusive. I haven't mentioned this on the show yet, but besides Nathan, I do have people that are 2 degrees of separation who have passed away. I found out yesterday some friends of mine's parents both got it and passed away in North Carolina. So there is a human cost to every decision big institutions make, right? There's no decision a big institution like the United States or even the state of Tennessee can make that won't have some kind of cost. And that doesn't make them necessarily bad people for doing things that have a human cost of some kind. But it's good for us, the people, because we're the ones that are supposed to run this place, right? We're ultimately responsible. It's good for us, the people, to know those consequences so we can be informed to make better future decisions, I think.
And I saw before that looks like Kelly and Judy had some good comments there.
You may hit
from
those.
Facebook before. Yeah, if we could. Kelly's saying absolutely some have suffered greatly due to this virus. It's certainly tragic. Every facet of our lives has been changed forever. Albert goes on, it's a place comment. He goes on to say, I don't see it. Nothing has changed in my life. Government overreach is a daily event for the essential people. Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. Kelly also says, all those surgeries that were canceled, cancer, orthopedic suicide, the list is long. Let's see if I can find the Judy comment. Yeah. Judy says those that go in with other problems and die are being counted as coronavirus deaths. Now, if you just join us for some reason, what we're talking about here is I'm personally just asking for some help from the real news audience here for how to make sense from a story. What we started with of a guy in Knoxville struggling with this, and it really hits close to home, and just the terrible, there's no way to put into words. There is honestly no way to put into words what it's like to struggle with this in the hot seat. Just go read the accounts for yourself. That's what I would implore the real audience to do that. But then also this story of the Hill comparing, okay, well, those things that aren't reported on. The hypothetical of the comparative of 800,000 years of lost lives to the virus to 1.5 million years of lost lives due to the shutdown itself. And I don't know, man, just to pull out a little bit here, Sean, go to that guy in the street, MSNBC, it's in the show notes here. Guy in the street calls out MSNBC's hypocrisy.
Give me 1 second, looking for it.
Right, so as we're focusing on this legitimate thing where, anecdotal evidence is what it is. Okay, it's not the best thing to base an opinion on necessarily. It's not the best way to formulate an opinion entirely either if you need to be statistically accurate about something, of course. But it is a way to lend some credence to the idea of like, man, what is it like to actually go through this and how serious we need to take this issue.
Sorry, I'm looking for it.
And on the other hand, it's also a thing where we have to be able to consider what's going to end up happening after this. We have to be able to consider people not showing up for cancer treatments, of people not showing up because they had a stroke, of people not going into the hospital for things that they would have gone in for otherwise, of the suicide rate increasing. Sean, I got this video here.
Instant classic from MSNBC.
It's instant classic, exactly. Instant classic from MSNBC.
It's on the screen.
Go ahead and play that for us, Sean. Let me hold on a second. As we're sitting here, as I'm sitting here last night trying to do some show prep and trying to figure out how I should feel about this approach. Here's MSNBC's taking this entire thing, man. It's a little bit. It's like I just don't know. I don't know who to take seriously anymore, man. Because everything is all about scoring political points when it comes to this stuff. And the two stories that I just mentioned a second ago, none of that should be political. You don't have to be Democrat or Republican to get your head around this idea. It doesn't have to be a blue-red thing. You don't have to it doesn't have to be conservative or liberal approach to this, man. It just is what it is. Go ahead and play that MSNBC clip. And when you do, listen to the guy at the very end saying, including the cameraman and half your crew. Go ahead and play that, Sean.
So are the people there just not worried about it, Cal? Are they not worried about their own personal safety?
I haven't met anybody who is. I met some folks actually from Lake Geneva who lived in the area. They were staying a few miles outside of town where I were, and they said they're worried about it. They're worried about that second spike. They're worried about folks coming in from Chicago. But they'll quickly add at the same time, this is a place that relies on that business. I think people here want a little bit more funding when it comes to these programs so that they could stay closed. But again, I think people felt like the Supreme Court made the decision here in Wisconsin that it was time to open up. But you can see here, just around. Nobody's wearing them. Nobody's. The cameraman. There you go, including the cameraman. Yeah. Katie.
Striking images. Cal Perry. Cal, thank you very much. And Cal.
It's not funny, Sean. It's not. I just don't know. I don't know any other.
Hold on. I turned my mic on. Yes, Grant, that's funny. Okay. Nah, I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, it's like in a vacuum. If you want to not be serious and just like you just saw something come across the TV or through your Twitter feed, the guy saying including your cameraman
and half your crew
your crew, like basically you're only virtue signaling on camera with your mask on and no one else is wearing one. That's funny. And it's not funny because of the mask thing. It's funny because the guy on camera has a mask and everyone else doesn't. Has nothing to do with whether or not a mask is a good idea or a bad idea. It's that obviously the guy on camera he's not like super concerned about wearing a mask. He's just making sure he's wearing one on camera. That's funny, man.
Right?
That's so funny. If we had done that, I would expect all of you out there on Facebook to be laughing at us right now.
Right? And dude, in this day and age where like one thing I really hoped would not carry over into this culture that we're dealing with this virus right now is this idea of just straight virtue signaling. And virtue signaling is something I obviously don't have to explain to the audience, but if you don't know for some particular reason, obviously the memized version, this is not even a word, but the idea of virtue signaling is like you throw some post out there or you do something just to signal to other people that, yes, I'm a virtuous man, I'm strong, I believe in these principles, but you're not actually really believing it. You're not actually really doing anything. And when it comes to someone like MSNBC, that's why it's so humorous to me is because you're like, how do I take you seriously? And you're the people that we're supposed to put in charge with asserting what is and is not truth. You're the people I'm supposed to listen to, man. When in that quickly. Okay, so that was a 45-second clip, but the only important part was the last 3 seconds. So in those last 3 seconds, I can go from dismantling everything you said before. And that's why a meme is so great, man, right? in general, what I think a meme is that it's a syllogism where one of the premises is not directly asserted. Here's what that means, right? So A plus B equals C is a syllogism. In a meme, one of the premises, either A or B, isn't necessarily stated. It's just, it is. There's a picture of it. It's happening right in front of you. It's implicit, exactly, right? So what ends up happening there is this guy's wearing a mask, and we get this sort of memed version, man, of this dude basically just, saying, but nobody else is. You're the only one doing this. You're clearly just doing this for the camera. And I go to this next story here. So MSNBC is the one that I'm supposed to listen to as far as what is and is not truth. And obviously this guy doesn't actually believe in wearing masks because he's just doing it for the sake of the camera. If he believed in wearing masks, he would force everybody else in his crew to be doing the same thing. Because you act on genuine beliefs. But Twitter now, as of yesterday, for the first time ever, in either American history, yes, but certainly Twitter history, has labeled the president's tweet as, quote, potentially misleading. And down in the show notes there, you can actually see for yourself what these tweets are. I have them linked in the show notes. The links are the actual tweets that were flagged by Twitter. For the first time ever, it's a decision that prompted the president to accuse social media platforms of election meddling. And you'll see what this little stuff looks like, right? This is the Trump's tweets. There's no way, zero, that mail-in ballots will be anything less than substantially fraudulent. Mail-in boxes will be robbed, ballots will be forged, and even illegally printed and fraudulently signed. The governor of California is sending ballots to millions of people. He goes on to say in the second tweet here, as this is loading on my screen, pause for sake of dramatic effect. No matter who they are or where they are, they'll get one. That will be followed up with professionals telling all of these people, many of whom have never ever thought to be voting before, whom to vote for, how to vote. This will be a rigged election, no way. And you'll see at the bottom of each one of these little things, a little blue exclamation point there. Get the facts about mail-in ballots. Now, this is nothing new to people on Facebook for a long time. We've seen this for a while. Okay, we've seen this little thing, and it frustrates people to no end. Because ultimately, man, this is such a great way to prove. This is such a great way to prove the values behind the First Amendment. You want to know why we focused so hard yesterday on these stories about Twitter or Facebook or YouTube becoming platforms or publishers? It's this stuff. It's this stuff. Twitter is now in the business. They've just made a mark to everyone. Think about it this way, okay? Donald Trump was just sued. Just a couple of years ago, and sued is not probably the right. There was litigation brought against Donald Trump for his personal Twitter account because President Trump, in his personal Twitter account, was banning people from his personal Twitter account. Now, the litigation was brought against him and said something to the effect of, this is a terrible legal analysis, so don't take my word for it. Go read the case for yourself. But it was something to the effect of, because you're the president of the United States, people have a right to get source material on what your tweets are. You're making a legitimate policy here, Mr. President, from your tweets. Valid. And in some way, that is deemed as the new sort of public forum, especially when you're a public representative. And maybe even exclusively when you're a public representative, but especially when you're the president of the United States. So because of that, the court said you can't ban people from this platform. You can't ban people from your personal Twitter account. People have a right to know what their elected leader of the free world is and is not doing. Yeah, exactly. Courts have also told Alexandria Cortez the same thing. Now, important distinction there. Alexandria Cortez is still banning people. She doesn't care. She wants the rules to apply to Trump, but she's not going to do it herself. Trump stopped banning people. Alexandria Cortez has continued to ban people. Fast forward to what we have now. So the courts have already deemed that what we're looking at is the new public forum. So if someone like Twitter were to come in the back and start manipulating with that, start manipulating in this realm of the public forum, starting to put some type of restriction on what can and cannot be said openly to the public in a public forum, what do you have there? You clearly don't have a platform anymore. You clearly don't have a neutral arbiter of truth. You clearly don't have a consistent standard for what's going to be applied to conservatives and Republicans. And if that's the case, if it's not consistent, if it's not arbitrary, and we are looking for stuff that is arbitrary here, we're looking for stuff that's applicable to everyone. If it is pointed, if it's selected to a particular political ideology or a particular worldview, then you got a major problem because you're starting to editorialize. You're starting to restrict based upon a worldview. You are now a publisher. This is why we focused so heavily before yesterday, man. And Shine, if you want to, anytime, chime in and let me know how you're feeling about this, because this is the reason why we focused so hard on this yesterday. Of what the difference between a publisher and a platform. Understand, a platform has certain liability protections, immunities, if you will. So if I go publish something on Facebook and it's defamatory on its face, if I say Shine committed some crime or something and it destroys his reputation and harms his business, Shine can't go sue Facebook. He can sue me, but he can't go sue Facebook because Facebook didn't publish it on my behalf. I published it. That's a protection that we've given to platforms. But what you